G'day, I'm Paul. Now, I think there's a problem, and that is with the pricing of the car behind me. It's the Jaguar F-Pace SVR. And I think when Jaguar was doing the pricing, they did it all and then forgot to carry a 2 because it is way too cheap for what it is. This is Jaguar's performance SUV, and it kind of sits in a weird segment because it's technically a medium-sized SUV, but it has a hulking big supercharged V8 under the bonnet and priced at $140-ish thousand. It's actually a whole lot cheaper than cars like the GLC 63, which is 170, 180 grand. And then you've got other cars in that segment like the X5M, the GLE 63. So it sits in this weird middle ground. And I think it is way too cheap for what it is. Now, if you want to skip ahead to this thing making a whole lot of noise, you can use the time codes above there, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down to the description. And if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you could hit subscribe and also the bell icon. That's going to tell you every single time we drop a new car review. Let's talk exterior, and tell me in the comments below, do you reckon this is the best looking SUV out there? I personally think it is, because just have a look at it, especially here in Ultra Blue. There's 7 colors available and they're all free of charge. You know how normally they charge for metallic colors and all that sort of stuff? These are all free, so you can pick any of those 7 at no cost to you. And I have another good surprise here, real vents. Have a look at this. You have real bonnet scoops there. They have holes in them so I can stick my fingers in. Giant radiators here, holes here, and then holes behind the wheel as well. Adaptive LED headlights. And I love these big gaping grills, so you can tell it's the SVR because it demands cooling. That supercharged V8 wants to stay nice and cool, and this is where all that air's coming through. Front and rear parking sensors, and you can see the radar there, that big block with the Jaguar logo, and then it proudly wears the SVR logo off to the side. When we get to the back, I'll show you the exhaust, which is the other telltale sign. Around here we have 21-inch alloy wheels as standard, but this car is fitted with the optional 22s. I'll be interested to see whether that affects the ride or not. Big brakes as well, 395mm rotors at the front. These are special wheels though, because the F-Pace SVR has lighter weight wheels to save weight all round. It comes in at just under 2 tons, and these wheels save 2.5 kilos at the front end, a little less at the rear. The exhaust as well saves 6.5 kilos with the material that they're using. Aluminium body as well. So this car is built for performance, and with a supercharged V8 engine under the bonnet, you can kind of tell. Now come around to the back here. You've got a full panoramic roof there that looks excellent inside the cabin. There's some aero for you, this cool duckbill spoiler. But around the back is where you're going to be able to tell this car apart from others in traffic. You have quad exhaust pipes. These make an almighty racket. You'll hear this car coming from a mile away. Now these are electrically actuated. That's slightly different to some of the pressure driven ones that wait until a certain RPM until they open the second slot of bimodal pipes. This is electrically driven, and that means that when you're driving around normally, they can actually have it sounding louder even though you're not hard on the throttle. So it gives it a really dynamic sound profile. Another SVR badge there, and then you've got a reflector built into this kind of fake air vent here. And this, check out all the gills behind this wheel. But it is a good looking rear on this car as well, and this blue really sets it apart from the other F-Paces on the road. So the outside of the F-Pace is stunning. What about the interior? I'm in 2 minds about this because I love parts of it and I hate other parts of it. Let's start with the bits that I love. The seat. It looks stupidly cool. I love that leather stitching. It wraps around beautifully. It's got the SVR insignia in the headrest, but have a look at this. The seat's already falling apart. The car has done like 1,500 kilometers, which is virtually brand new. That's really, really not cool. And in terms of the rest of it, I like the way that it looks, but I know that it could look better because the Jaguar XE just received an update and it got the same interior as the I-Pace. And this is what it used to look like. Now it has 2 screens. You actually get a nice steering wheel instead of this thing with all the plastic and cheap stuff on it. That just looks a little bit cheap and nasty. Look, that stuff to one side. It is nicely presented with piano black, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it does look nice to the eye. I like the contrast stitching, but how soft is it? That is the ultimate test. Let's get our durometer. Measures from 0 to 100, where 0 is super soft and 100 is super hard. So let's try it on the top dashboard first. That's about a 60. That's pretty good there. And let's try it on the center console here. That's in the 70s. It is soft, but it's not super soft. It could be softer. And what about build quality? So we've got the nasty seat thing going on there. The rest of this actually feels really good. Everything's nice and solid. Nothing's sort of moving around too much. So tick for build quality aside from the seat that's weirdly falling apart. Let's talk infotainment. I'm going to give you a detailed review here of InControl Touch Pro, which is the infotainment system fitted to this car. But we're going to do this in 3 sections. One is the infotainment system. The next is the remote application, and then finally I'll walk you through the screen in front of the driver. So let's kick things off over here. It's a 10-inch screen, it's a touch screen as well. All of your interaction is done on the touch screen. There's no center iDrive style dials. So I'm going to show you the 360 camera, but I have to start the car first to show you what it looks like. So once you press this button, it brings up the 360 camera. And then when you select reverse, it will adjust the views automatically to suit what you're going near. And then you'll see the parking sensors pop up on the side there as well. But there is a really cool function here I want to show you. It is the trailer reversing assistant. So you get yourself set up with a trailer. Let's just say it's got 2 axles and it is 250 millimeters wide. 40 millimeters across there. And then what it says is make sure the car is aligned with the trailer, because what it's now going to ask you to do is put a target on the trailer. And what this does is allows the car to recognize where the trailer is, so that when you do reverse with it on, it will automatically reverse the trailer into the parking spot for you and you won't have to do anything. Let's go through the navigation menu, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing here. So you have navigation like any other car. That works fairly well. Where it doesn't work well is on cold starts. So when you first turn the car on, after you directly hop into it, you can't really put any addresses in because it takes a while to boot up. So that's a little bit frustrating and sometimes a bit laggy when it wants to be, but then other times, like right now, it's fine. It's all working nice and quickly. So a little bit confusing. Traffic overlays. Yes, it has traffic overlays, except you have to be paired to your phone through Wi-Fi, which is what I've done now, or alternatively, in the center console here, get another SIM card. So the car already has a SIM card for the remote services, but you then need to buy your own data SIM card to get things like traffic and to use the embedded apps. So it's a little bit confusing that you have to have 2 data SIMs on the go. But from there, it's very straightforward to put addresses in, and you can go through looking for points of interest. You can put your home address in. So it is fully functional. It is just a little bit clumsy in terms of the way that it works. Embedded into the system as well is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. We don't have an Android phone, but I do have an Apple phone, so I'll show you what that looks like. It's a widescreen setup, works pretty well. It's just not super high resolution, which is weird. I would have expected some of this stuff to be a little bit sharper, but outside of that, it's just your standard Apple CarPlay integration, and all works really easily. To get back to the Jaguar menu, you just press Jaguar, it takes you back to the native inbuilt system. In the media menu, that's where you're going to find all the connectivity options for the radio. The car doesn't come standard with DAB plus digital radio. You have to option that on most Jaguars, which is kind of strange, but it does come with FM, AM, and then DAB plus when you do option it. You access it through here. The stations are easy to find, and the good thing is they're easy to set as favorites as well. So as you scroll through here, if you want a favorite, you just hit that and then it puts it into your favorites list. So it's very easy to navigate there, find your favorites, and then also call them up on your heads-up display as well. Swipe across here and you get access to the rest of the menus. So Eco Data is simply the economy impact you've had on your previous driving. We've been a little bit naughty having a listen to the exhaust and stuff like that, so just pretend these numbers are better than they are, but they're all above 15 litres per 100 kilometres. You then also have access to a web browser built into the screen. It's not the best thing in the world. It's a little bit slow and can be cumbersome at times. Let's try visiting the best car website in the world. See how long that takes to load. Okay, there it is there. We'll try scrolling now as well. You can see it's a bit laggy and kind of displays weirdly as well. It's adopted half a mobile format and half a desktop format, so not a huge fan of that. I don't know why they bother integrating web browsers when they don't actually look that good. This I find fascinating. There's a flight tracker randomly built into this, so let's give this a shot. We'll see what this looks like. So we'll go here and go by routes from, let's just go Melbourne, MEL. That's looking for Melbourne now. To Sydney, SYD. Finding airport. Okay, so let's find the flights for today. Okay, there it is there. See this flight arrived late. There you go, some fascinating information. And then weather, of course, which is very handy to know what the weather's going to be like where you're going, or even where you are right now. So you can see here that it is, as the screen crashes a little bit. Okay, that's not great. So you can see stuff like this Clearly, they've integrated all of these things, but then it randomly crashes every now and then, which kind of doesn't fill you with confidence in the way that it works. You can option ambient lighting, so this car comes with the LED configurable lighting, and in here is where you change all the colours, the brightness, and when it comes on and off. But Dynamic Eye is specific to SVR cars, and you can see when it is in dynamic mode, if I flick that across, you can configure exactly what the car is doing in terms of the suspension, the engine, the exhaust note. They've also got a lap timer, you have a G meter built in, and then a throttle position sensor as well. So as you press the throttle harder, that goes up and down. Well, that's handy information if you ever do take the car to a racetrack. And finally, you have the ASI suite. This is for off-road driving. You're not going to be doing a whole lot of off-road driving in this car as the screen crashes again. Okay. Excellent. So the screen has now crashed. Hello. Oh no, screen's back, I hope. Okay, yay, the screen's back. Okay, so I just disconnected the phone and it's now kind of working a little bit better. So I don't know, maybe there's some compatibility issue there with Apple CarPlay and the way that it talks to the screen. Anyway, where I was before it crashed was the off-roading screen. If you do decide to do some off-roading in this car, even though you won't, this is where you're going to find information about the surface you're driving on, with some handy camera angles here to show you what's going on around the car. And then finally, you'll also find the low friction launch, which is just a feature that gives you a little bit of extra slip as the car takes off, but then won't overcome the wheels with torque, which will cause it to spin and do silly stuff. Finally, the system comes with voice recognition. This actually works quite well. So when I press this button, it comes up with the voice menu, and then it allows me to pick what I want to do. I can enter full navigation addresses, ask it to call people. It's quite intuitive and it understands a lot of voices and a lot of weird phone names as well. Let's talk about the Jaguar remote application. This is one of the few applications for these cars that works quite well. So when you open it up, it presents you with information about the car. So you can see how much fuel is in there, the weather at the location where the car is, the range, the odometer, and the status of the car. So whether the doors are open, windows are closed, you can remotely lock and unlock the car from here as well. And then you have a map that shows you where the car is and directions to your car. So if you're at a music festival or something, you can find your way back to the car if it's in some weird car park or some big field. On this screen here, you can remotely start the car. So if you do want to get the climate going, you can push this button, it'll send a command to the car and switch it on. But be careful, don't remotely start your car if it's in a garage, because this has a petrol engine. It is going to make toxic fumes and it's not good for your lungs. Next up, you have trip history. I love this function because it shows you where you've been, how much fuel you've used in your last journeys, your maximum speed, your average speed, and the efficiency. Don't look at that bit. We've used quite a lot of fuel because I love the exhaust sound. Next up is details about the car, such as your VIN number, registration number, the ability to call Jaguar assistance. And in addition to that, if the car does get stolen and the alarm gets triggered, they can call you as well, track the car remotely and switch it off remotely. So this is a fully featured app and you can get it with most Jaguars, which is awesome. Finally, let's have a look at the screen in front of the driver. It's a little over 12 inches in size, all LCD. You don't have any more analog gauges. It moves fairly quickly as you're driving, so the rev counter goes up fast. In the older car, the XJ, it was a little bit laggy, so it wouldn't keep up with everything that was going on. You can fully configure everything on there. I'll show you what the screen looks like when you change into dynamic mode. You can see how it goes all red as soon as that happens. And then you can completely take over the screen and change where the elements of it sit. So at the moment we have the map in the center there. I can change it to show the radio station that we're listening to. So I'll jump out of that. Or you can actually change the entire look of that panel by going down to layout and then changing to a one dial setup, which moves everything like this, or to a full map, which I think is pretty full on. I prefer the 2-dial layout. And then finally, you also have the ability to configure the rest of the car's settings, such as security features, how long the lights stay on outside, convenience features inside the cabin, everything including reverse dipping for the mirrors, whether the windows all open at the same time when you hold unlock, what action you have for the gear shift paddles. It all works really well. The only thing I don't like is just, again, how cheap these buttons feels as you move through them. They are much better on the new XE. Let's talk about the other features you get as standard in the F-Pace SVR. You have heated and cooled seats. It would be nice if there was just a button here for the seat heating and cooling activation. Instead, you have to go through the menu and then manually switch it on and off. It's a little bit disappointing that while a lot of things are standard, a lot of things are optional as well, such as safety features. So blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, they're all part of a package that you have to option on. Same with the heads-up display. So very weird rationale behind that, and perhaps that's how they got their price so low. But in terms of safety, AEB is low speed only. You have to pay for that extra package to go high speed. Heated and cooled seats, as I mentioned, dual zone climate control. You also have USB connectivity inside here. It's standard USB, so not USB-C, which is what we're seeing a lot of manufacturers move towards. A heated steering wheel is standard, perfect for those frosty mornings. If you look above me here, you have this really, really nice suede headlining. I think this alone adds so much character and depth to a car. It makes it feel very premium. That panoramic roof looks fantastic as well. It has a blind that you push and hold to close, and then the connected services are operated up here. If you ever run into an emergency, there's an SOS button hidden behind here that will use the car's inbuilt SIM to call emergency services. Radar cruise control is also optional, fitted to this car. And then the stereo is an 11-speaker Meridian sound system, 380 watts, or you can go pay a little bit extra for the bonkers sound system, but the standard one actually sounds really good, so I don't think there's really any need to open up your wallets. What does the key look like? It's a little bit dated now, it's looking a little old, but this is what it looks like in effect. So lock, unlock, boot, headlights, and then the emergency buzzer. It's a proximity key, so you just leave that in your pocket to start the car and to open the doors as well. What about practicality? Let's start with storage. Where are you going to put your phone? The phone easily fits in the cup holders. There's also a nook up the front here with a rubber pad on it. No wireless charging though, which is a little bit disappointing. What about bottle storage? It's got rubberized things on the side there to stop the bottle moving around. And then inside the door, you've got room for a bottle and other bits. Center console, it's not massive, it's not overly deep. And what about the glove box? Oh, that's tiny. Once you put the manual in there, you're not really going to have much more room for anything else. Is it comfortable? Yes, the seats are as comfortable as they are good looking. The seating position's really nice. I feel like I'd like to spend time behind the wheel of this. I'm hoping it rides as well as it is comfortable, but yeah, from this position right here, I'm liking what I'm feeling. Okay, backseat bandits. What's it like here? Let's start with knee room. It's pretty reasonable, not a great deal of toe room, but remember, I got my seat pretty far back as I always do, but this seat is a chunky sports seat. So given that, you're actually afforded a fair bit of legroom here. You're also getting rear air vents for those hot summer days. You have seat heating for the two outboard seats. You also have USB charging, 5 volt down there, and then a 12 volt outlet as well. No pockets here. If you're getting kids in the back, ISOFIX points for the seats. The seats themselves look so bloody cool. They're like miniature versions of the front seats. So even if you've got your kids back here, they're just gonna love the texture and stuff. Although, I don't know what's gonna happen when they drop some yogurt or some other runny, gooey liquid into these seats. I reckon that's going to ruin them. Actually, let me know in the comments below, if you've got kids and you've got a sporty car like this, what happens to your seats? How long do they last before they obliterate them? Do you put seat covers on? Let me know how it works. I don't have kids, so I'm not entirely sure. Center armrest with 2 cup holders. And these seats are pretty comfy as well. What about headroom? Headroom is okay. I think a taller passenger is going to be touching the roof there. But again, I love panoramic roofs. And if you've got kids, I think they're going to love this as well. Almost forgot, bottle storage. Fits into the doors very easily. What about that center armrest? Yeah, you kind of got to cram it in there, but it's got those rubber things just like the front. So things aren't going to move around all that easily. Despite this being technically classed as a medium-sized SUV, the boot's pretty generous because of that design at the back. 508 litres of cargo capacity here in this slot, and that expands to a little over 1,700 litres when you drop the seats. Under here, have a look at this. You've got like a racing space saver spare tyre. I love that colour. Everyone's going to know that you've had a flat. And then you've got other miscellaneous bits in here, such as your jack, and there's a battery hidden under there as well, so it kind of evenly distributes the weight around the car. In the back here as well, you've got a net on the side, a 12 volt outlet, some LED lights, and then some flick switches here to drop the seats. But before I do that, I'll show you how this comes out. So you pull these 2 down, give that a light pull. It's actually not that easy to use. It's actually really not easy to use. You kind of have to battle with it. There's nowhere for that to sit under the floor, so it kind of just has to sit there or in your garage somewhere. I'll show you how these drop now as well. One pull of that, they slam down with a bit of force, and then your luggage fits in pretty easily. I'm just going to stick it on top of this cargo line. It's a good sized boot. You're going to be able to fit prams and other bits and pieces in here if you're using this as a family car, plus power tailgate as well. We've hit the road in the F-Pace SVR, and before I show you what this sounds like when it's screaming, I want to run you through just the basics of the package. Under the bonnet is a 5-litre supercharged V8. It's a similar engine to the one that's used in cars like the F-Type, and it really sits beautifully under the bonnet of this car. 405 kilowatts of power and 680 Newton meters of torque. That is a sensational set of figures. Then on top of that, you have an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's not a dual clutch, which is great. It's nice and smooth and it works well with the engine. You got to remember, with supercharged engines, they kind of fill that torque gap that you're missing out on with turbocharged engines. So with a gearbox like this, you lean on the throttle and it doesn't have to dive back through the gears. It just uses the torque band and the supercharger and that hardy V8 engine to just get it propelled along nicely. It's never hunting through the gears all the time. So despite the fact that the speedo goes up to 360 kilometers an hour, it's slightly ambitious. The top speed's actually just over 280 kilometers an hour, and the official 0 to 100 time is 4.3 seconds, and I'll show you what that looks like. So what's that all going to cost you in terms of fuel economy? Okay, let's be quite frank here. It's a supercharged V8 engine, so it's going to be pretty thirsty. Official figure is 11.7 litres per 100 kilometres, but if I cycle through our average now, it's just over 16, but that's been with some very noise-inducing driving, so I guess that's to be expected. Let's talk about the ride. So obviously we're on 22-inch alloy wheels, which doesn't help. Fairly low profile tyres as well. When it is in comfort mode, the adaptive dampers actually do a good job of just smoothing everything out. It is a little on the sportier side of comfortable, so you will feel some bumps and there is a bit of noise coming into the cabin from the tyres, but it's not over the top. It's not droning everything out. It is very bearable. Let's talk drive mode. So you have like a snow and ice mode, an eco mode, the comfort mode, and then dynamic mode. So I'm going to flick it into dynamic. Second I do that, the car firms up, the steering gets a little heavier, all of the dials and the gauges here go red. The car's ready for attack. It automatically opens the exhaust. You then can flick the gear lever over to S mode. Immediately comes to life there. It is backfiring, that is so cool. Okay, so let's give this a punch here. Man, it sounds unbelievable. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm hearing supercharger whine. I'm getting crackles and pops from that exhaust. So as I lean on the throttle here, it is so responsive. It just goes hard. Every single time you push the throttle, it is responding. It is so razor sharp. It feels nothing like any other V8 I've driven. The supercharger really brings it to life and just has it ready for attack mode all the time. Okay, let's talk about the brakes. Brake pedal feels good. It's a tiny bit spongy, but the brakes are pretty big. We had the chance when we tested this ages and ages ago overseas to really attack this through a mountain road, and the brakes held up really nicely. Sometimes the brakes on Jags aren't that impressive, especially the carbon ceramic ones. This feels really good though, and I can always confidently know that the pedal's there. Can't say the same for the steering though. Even when the car is sort of moving around fairly slowly, there's not a great deal of feel through the steering wheel. It's an electrically assisted steering rack, but as the speed picks up a little bit, you're kind of not getting that communication through the wheel that you would like to get. This is a sporty SUV. I want to feel everything that's happening. In the XE, which is Jaguar's sedan, you have so much communication. This, on the other hand, just feels a little bit dull and lackluster. You can lean in nicely though and feel confident in having enough traction. When you are in that dynamic mode, it actually starts driving more like a rear-wheel drive car. So it's sending more of the torque to the rear, and it only really activates that front axle when you are starting to get a little bit of slip. So this feels very much like a big version of the F-Type sports car. Compared to the normal F-Type, up the front there, the suspension is 30% stiffer, and at the back it's 10% stiffer. It has a stiffer anti-roll bar, so as you are plowing through corners, it doesn't actually have much body roll at all. It always feels like it's well connected to the road, and you always feel like you have traction too. So it is a very sporty package, and Jaguar delivers on that driving experience. Where a BMW is quite on the hardcore end of sporty, this kind of sits in between, where it feels comfortable but sporty enough at the same time, with an unlimited amount of theatrics from the exhaust. In terms of the differential on the rear of this car, it uses an electronic active differential. That means that it's able to vary the amount of locking from fully open all the way through to fully closed. Then on top of that, it uses a brake bias torque vectoring system. So it's not a proper mechanical torque vectoring system. It uses brakes to simulate a torque vectoring system, but that gives you that tucked in feeling as you come around a corner. It can limit the amount of torque that you're getting to a wheel, which kind of makes it tuck in and shoot out of a corner a bit easier. Okay, so let's go back into comfort mode here. I'll make it all quiet. It's nice and serene. Let's talk about visibility. This is a fairly big SUV, but so easy to see out of. Front visibility is great. The wing mirrors are fairly big as well, so you get excellent visibility out the sides. This car has all of those options that I mentioned earlier in terms of safety assist systems. So you've got the blind spot monitoring in the wing mirror. Visibility out the back is good. The sports seats have a high neck on them, so they do kind of interfere in the corners. But outside of that, it's an easy car to drive and it doesn't feel intimidating. I feel that you have to talk with a deep voice with this because of the exhaust. It sounds so good. I'm a massive fan of this car. The fact that it is just 140 grand. I know that in relative terms, that's probably, depends how much you earn and all that sort of stuff, but in relative terms to other competitors in this segment, that is really good value for money, especially with the car that you're getting, how hard it goes and how easy it is to live with as a daily driver. It's let down by a dated interior that was delayed because of production delays, but I think you can live with that when you hear the exhaust and feel the acceleration. It is a really special car to drive, and I'm a big fan of it. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think of it? Did you buy one? What color did you get? And if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you could hit subscribe to our YouTube channel and also press the bell icon and hit like on this video if you found it useful. As always, we're happy to answer any questions that you've got, so just leave them in the comments section below. And until next time, take it easy.